and thank you for listening. This is Jen Amaral Coons with Living Open. And today I don't want to leave a video, and I always know that. I know myself enough to know that if there's something I don't want to do, I probably really need to do it. Like, that's probably what I'm being called to do. That's going to make everything feel better. And if I'm not looking right at you, it's because the sun is in my eyes. So I'm trying to find a way to look. But today the thing that has brought me to leave the video, as usually what happens is I hear a phrase or someone says something or I witness like something visually, and that brings me to want to give one of these talks. And what I heard was, make love of yourself more easy. And I thought, that's so beautiful, like, was my first thought about that. Like, to make love of yourself more easy is such a beautiful thing. And how do it just struck me so deeply, like it felt so heavy in a beautiful way on my heart, like it was spooning with my heart, you know, just so beautifully still there. And I thought, how do I want to do that in my life? You know, that's what came up for me, is how do I want to make love of myself more easy? And I feel like ideally, when I think about that, like, I do all the things that I need to do to take care of myself, like if I want to go outside or go on a run or have some alone time or all of these things. But I noticed that now that we're in a pandemic, making love of myself more easy is a little more challenging, because I'm noticing as we move through, like, my needs keep changing, and some of them are the same. Like, I know myself enough to know that most of my day is spent outside is a good day, and regardless of if I'm cleaning up the yard or in nature or basking in the sun with people by myself, like, if whatever I'm doing is outside, then those are my favorite days and easiest days. When I'm inside, those are my harder days, and being with my family and connecting with people and doing something with meaning and purpose in every day, like, those are the basic things that are there, like connecting with my spirituality and journaling or meditation or prayer or whatever that is. So all of those things, like those foundational things that I do, are there, yet there's like something more that is needed, and I'm not always fully aware of what that is. And that has been kind of challenging as we move through this, is when I think about how to make love of myself more easy, what comes up for me is how I'm doing that is just to sit in the unknown as lovingly and compassionately and gracefully as I can. And in some days it's not graceful, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I wish it was graceful in every day, but like this weekend I had a day that I call savage, when I felt like itchy in my own skin, like the woolen sneed, like from Dr. Seuss, like the sneed, but it's wool and I'm like wrapped in it and I feel like a wet cat. Like, and I had a day like that, I think it was Saturday, and I just felt like everything was irritating and I wanted to do something different than what I was doing, but I also like wanted to do what I was doing. It just didn't feel the way I wanted it to feel. And that's what I'm noticing, is that like I'll put on this old cozy sweater of a coping strategy or a habit or a process, and it will feel like a woolen coat. And so I'm trying to just allow that to be. And so when I think about making love of myself more easy, a lot of it is just allowing what is to be, like what I'm experiencing in the moment, just to be. And I can't always fix it or change it or have it be different. And then the second part is just creating a sacred space. And the irony is, I feel like, again, that's something that I like to do and that I put in my life, but those sacred spaces, or how I do it, feel like lacking or not sufficient or not enough, or like a tight woolen sweater again. And so I'm having to find other opportunities for sacred spaces. What does that mean? And do I need more time by myself outside, or what does that look like for me? And so I talked about that a little bit in the women's group that I do on Fridays, and how it's important when we're asking questions of ourself or of our spirit that we're creating spaces for the answers to show up. Otherwise, we're just talking at whatever, like talking at the spirit, talking at the world, talking at ourselves. But if we want the answers, we have to be willing to be healthy open listeners, and that I find that this can be hard for people in all relationships, hard when we have our own agenda to hear what someone else has to say, especially if that hurts us, if what they have to say is that we disappointed them, or that they feel disappointment, or that they are unhappy. It's hard to hear those things from someone, and so it can make it hard to create a sacred space for listening. And the same thing can happen like with ourselves. And there's a woman in our community, her name is Trinity Wilborn. I don't really know of her personally, but I know of her via the amazing things that she does in the world for women, creating women's circles and connection. And I think her program is called Architect. And she talks about, I heard her last little video, she said she had to do it multiple times because it is to get more like to her truth, more deeper to her truth, more deeper and vulnerable to what is. And I feel like I've committed to like making these lives, so I don't do a lot of them. I'm just gonna do one. And so it's weird when I do it because I feel like I come deeper as I'm talking. I've always been one with a little ADHD that like gets clearer in my head as I process things. And so like there's that depth of, part of me doesn't want to go and open up a big ass sacred space to like feel more grief and sadness, if I'm being truly honest. And that hurts because I feel like there's a little bit of universal, the universal grieving, and then just the day-to-day grieving that we do, just living, and not getting our needs met, or not getting what we want or how we want it to be, and life not going our way. And we need to be sad for a minute about that and connect and, balance all the emotions and all the experiences that we're having. And that takes its own effort on the day-to-day. And now we're in this pandemic and we're social distancing. And as an introvert, like I like a good amount of distance, that's great. But I also like to connect a little bit more deeply with everyone I see, whether that's on the street, just saying like, hey, or talking to kids. I love talking to kids and like the elderly. And I don't like saying the elderly, but today that's what I'm saying. And to seniors, I always call it flirt with old people and kids, just move about the world. Wow, that's a cool Spider-Man costume, or I really like your glasses, or what are you doing? You look like you're having so much fun. Look at you ride your bike. Just a little something, a little moments of pride that I could share with someone, or little moments of I see you and you're awesome, like in the world. And I like to give a little bit of that to everyone I see in different ways. And it's just something I've always done. I don't think I try to do it or set about to do it. I just think it's who I am. I notice things and then I like say what I notice. And that's been really hard to do. Like it's been really hard to make that kind of connection to people when we're wearing masks and creating distance. And I have had some of those experiences and they feel so good. Like they just feel so great. And I realize that there are a lot of things that I've taken advantage or for granted without really noticing. And some of that are just these like day-to-day things, like meeting strangers on the street and having a connection. And some of it is food on my plate. Like the food comes from on my plate, and it goes through a lot to get there. And I don't have to go hunt and gather, but there's a very low element of that happening in the world. Like going to a grocery store is scarier than it was before. And so it's really becoming known to me how grateful I am for everybody being there and getting the food for me, or delivering it to me if that's what I've chosen, or just working there every day while I'm just there once a week picking up food, just being really grateful for things, for all of the things, for every little thing. And there's like a grief weight on that too of, that hurts. The gratitude is beautiful pain, it's like love and pain and all the things. And so if I'm going to open up a bigger, back to my sacred space for myself, like what's going to be in there, and I feel like I'm saying that from a place of really like loving myself, even loving myself. To create a bigger space for myself hurts, because I have to create a space to be sad with myself, to grieve a little with myself. And I think about that recently. I heard someone who was losing a family member, and they've been, spending time with them at the last days of their life. And that has been hard for them, and there's a daily resistance that comes up of not wanting to meet that kind of a pain and how that hurts. And that makes a lot of sense to me, like why the resistance. I think sometimes people judge it and feel bad. I shouldn't resist that. This person is important. Why do I do that? I feel guilty. Versus just letting it be. Like, of course, why would we not resist something that's painful? Anybody would resist that. We would want to pull someone we love out of pain, and we would want to pull ourselves out, and that's normal. And so today I'm leaving this video like unfinished, where a lot of the times I feel like I have the answer and I know, and here it is, and let's do this thing. I feel like today I'm also opening up an invitation to myself to really get interested in what does an even bigger sacred space look like for myself, or maybe that's not the right word, bigger. What does a more authentic sacred space look like? You know, what is the new space that I'm needing in this time look like more fully? And I've already redecorated, so to speak, my sacred space like 6 different times or more during this pandemic. Okay, I need more of this and less of that. I need to grow more things and do more things outside, and spend more time, you know, being creative, or paint more, or do some projects, and just sit quietly by the water and listen and write more. And there's I'm doing all those things, and it's weird when you talk about it because it sounds like doing, but in the moment it sounds like being. It just is what naturally happens as I follow my intuitive clock, and I feel like that's really easier to listen to in this space because I can move my schedule around, and I have a lot of space. I don't work until 1:30 or 2 every day, so I have a big space in the morning to be able to really just follow my own biological clock and do what feels natural and authentic to me, and that feels good. And then I'm still feeling like a sense of longing that I need to get interested in. You know, what is that about? And I think some of that longing needs attention because there is something that's unmet that needs to like be met. And I think another part of it is just what I call yurta. Like I'm doing everything right and all the things are right, but it just feels bad. And it feels bad because that's just how it's supposed to feel right now. Being in a pandemic, like it feels bad. Like there isn't any way, you know, avoidance has never been a strong suit for me. I'm not really good at it. And it sounds funny to say because ideally you don't want to avoid things, but it's also like an important skill to have too. And I feel like it's never I'm one of those people who like grab your sword and go at the problem and solve it. And so it's hard to not like mask it with anything. Like, you know, if you could drink more, or smoke this, or watch this TV, or do this thing, like you could have that little bit of like disappearing, or a little bit of time where you just feel shut off to yourself. And in some moments that feels like interesting to me. However, none of those things work. Like drinking doesn't ever make me, I never think, wow, I was really glad I drank. Like that was a good experience. My body doesn't like that, and I have chronic pain issues, and so I've never really liked drinking since college. And I don't like smoke anything either. That's not great for my allergies or my body or my health or my lungs. And I've never really enjoyed television much, although I've heard Netflix is all the rave, and I occasionally tap into The New Girl, or I just keep really watching that over and over, or Grace and Frankie. But I really like not to watch TV, so it's hard to like have moments that feel shut off without constant attention or intention. And that's what I feel like I'm noticing with the pandemic. Like I have to be intentional about meditating and intentional about things because I need it more and it's more important. Whereas before I could maybe only do that once or not do that in a day or go a day or two without. It just doesn't work like that now. Like I have to be intentional about meditating every day, whether that's a meditative walk or sitting in a quiet space or sitting by the water or whatever that is. But that needs to happen in every day. And it just seems like in some moments that even when you do all the right things, it feels hard or it feels tired. So this invitation like could sound like gloom and doom in some ways, but to me it sounds like beauty. And I think that sometimes we could accidentally read something into someone's emotion, like think, wow, that looks like depression, or that looks like sadness, or that looks like. So what I'm feeling, so you know what that is for me, is beauty and love and compassion and sadness and grief and a little bit of fear and hopefulness and joy and love. You know, I think I've said that already, but I feel that too for myself and for the invitation. And so the invitation is to make love of yourself more easy and to create sacred spaces. And if people don't like language, like, and I've said this before in my talks, like, just change it. So the moral is to create a space for yourself to listen. So you could call that space to listen, or you could call that special space or quiet space or listening within space or whatever you want. It doesn't have to be sacred. I like that word because it seems like important to the deepest level of my soul. So I choose that word. But you could choose the word that fits for you. It doesn't have any religious connotation, but to me it has a spiritual connotation when I say it. And so for you, you could change that to however you want it. So today the invitation is to find spaces to listen within, so you can hear like what it is that you're really longing after or longing for, and to have a willingness to continue to revise and connect and again keep making changes as you need them, because I think that's what we're going to need to do to endure. Like, I've never been you know, as a runner or just anything I've ever done, I've been in school, I love learning, and so there's never been a training program that has stayed the same the whole time. Like, to train for anything, it has to look different. You know, like with running, it has to look like short sprints and things that are cross training that aren't even running at all, and then it looks like running, and then it looks like running long distance or short distance or little circuits or lifting weights. Like, it looks like a lot of things, you know. And being a mom, the same thing. It looks like being inside and getting support and talking to other people and being with other moms and volunteering, and it looks like something different all the time. And if I were to just to say like being a good mom looks like reading bedtime stories and this, then I would be missing the mark, because sometimes I don't read bedtime stories, you know, but I do other really amazing things. And and now if I tried to sit by my 11-year-old and read him a bedtime story, he'd be like, what the heck are you doing? Like, he's obviously way too old for that. So my momming needs to be revised, you know, based on the needs of my kiddos and the needs in our life and our finances and whatever else. Like, but it comes back to this value of, you know, being fully present to teach and give and receive and, you know, be the healthiest person I could be, to model that for my children, and to teach them how to do that for themselves, and to invite them, you know, to that without pulling them out of hard things, but teaching them how to do hard things at the pace that works for them and according to what they value, and not necessarily what I value, but kind of a little both when they're little, you know. And I have to change that, but those are the core values. And so the core values with myself, again, is loving myself more deeply and making love of myself easy. And even though that's hard and that needs to keep changing and continue to be revised, and it feels like a lot of work in a pandemic, where before it just kind of did itself. It was like, you know, on autopilot. I just kind of, the plane flew itself, and when it was time to land, I landed it. And now I feel like, I have to constantly pay attention for this freaking, you know, red-eye flight clear across America, and it feels like more exhausting, but there's also a lot of beauty in it. And so I hope that you too can see the same, and that these videos I like to model by example. And again, being a healthy role model is like always what I aspire to be. And so I hope that it helps you in some way, and if it does, feel free to like it or share it. And I would love to hear via your response, either personally to me or out there to the world, like of how you're doing it, what's helpful for you. Any healthy coping strategies you have, I always say share all of those. The ones that aren't healthy, keep them inside. No need to share and trigger others, but if you have, no need to judge yourself either. But if you have healthy ones, like, go ahead and share them, because everybody learns, you know, that's how we learn. We learn from watching others. And I see you. So have a great day. Take good care. Bye.